you, Wei Xiong. Hi everyone, I'm Amanda. So Wei Xiong has shared with you about the AI agent, about the meeting scheduler agent specifically. And you have seen how you can use the AI agent builder right out of the box in Kaizen to build your very own personal AI assistant. Now for my part, piecing it all together, I'll show you how exactly you can integrate what you have built, like the AI agent, into your application's workflow. So specifically into your government processes. Over here, what you see is the workflow designer, and we have let me first go through the decision tables to show you the scenarios that we have went through earlier and how exactly it ties in with the AI agent. So once you have clicked into the decision table, notice this looks very familiar to the slide that we have showcased. So these are all the permutations of the 3 preset conditions here. So these 3 conditions determine whether or not the trademark application that we have filed leads to different outcomes. So there's in the action tab here, the action column here is where the outcomes are executed. And as we have described earlier, we have a couple of scenarios. So we have the proceed case for the standard cases where the trademark is not too distinct or is not similar to an existing trademark. But of course, we also have the auto refusal cases and also the auto approval cases for the edge cases. But of course, what we have demonstrated today, it will be in particular to the rule number 5 here, which is the subjective cases that are much more complex and require some experts' intervention to discuss and find out the outcome further. So this is where our AI agent come into play to schedule the meeting for us and help to alleviate all this manual administrative work. All right, so on the decision table at the top, notice that we also have this hit policy. Basically, the hit policy determines which rules are executed or combined if multiple of the evaluation rules are met. In this case, we have configured unique because there should only be one matching rule and because your rules are mutually exclusive. But of course, if you click into the drop-down, notice that you can just easily configure with any hit policy that meets your business requirements. So we have first, which would return the first matching outcome, and we also have perhaps collect, which will collect a few outcomes that are matching and evaluated, and eventually it will all be collected and returned to you. So easily you can just configure the policy here depending on your needs. So you may wonder, what's the benefit of using decision tables, right? So traditionally how we do it is, perhaps as developers, you will use your switch cases or your if-else statements in actual code in order to craft out all your complex business rules. And a lot of the time, it will be really heaps and heaps of code, and it is hard to track, and of course, it's not very easily understandable by non-coders or non-technical users. So let me explain to you what are the 2 key advantages of using decision tables. Firstly, as you can tell, there's better readability and clarity because everything that you see here is represented in a table format. So it's really easy to understand and interpret. Even your non-technical users, as mentioned, like perhaps your business analysts or your business users, they can just easily understand the rules from the table format instead of the robust lines of code. And if they want to modify it or edit it, it's also really easy. They can proceed to do so through the decision table itself. Which brings me to my next point, which is that using decision table is advantageous because there is simplified maintenance and increased scalability. And why do I say so? If you see over here, we have scrolled all the way down. Now modifying or adding new rules to your application's complex business rules is really just as simple as keying in over here, perhaps a new rule or modifying existing rules. And usually, if you make changes, you will need to change your code manually. And of course, you need to deploy your application once again. So all of this will incur a lot of downtime for your system, right? But now if we use these means over here in Kaizen, we can just make the change and redeploy the workflow here directly. And essentially, your changes will just take effect immediately. Yeah, so you have seen how the decision table is able to fit in the scenario that we have demonstrated for the trademark application. Now let's move on to the actual workflow so that I can show you how exactly we integrated this table as well as the AI agent that you have seen. Alright, so let's first navigate it a bit. This is the workflow designer again, and the top left panel you can see these are a list of all our workflow elements that we have. So firstly, we have user tasks, which allow you to configure any task that requires user's action, and you can also do your task routing easily, which I'll show you on later. And we also have a whole range of service tasks. Of course, we have our decision task, which links to the decision table, and we have our AI agent task, which is the main highlight of today, which integrates with the AI agent flow that you have built. And of course, we have a whole list of other tasks like your HTTP tasks, your JavaScript tasks, your JDBC tasks for your databases, and also some generative AI RAG related tasks as well. So now moving on to the actual workflow. Firstly, what you notice that is encapsulated in this swim lane diagram, right? So there are different roles that we have preset over here for our particular trademark application. Of course, we have the applicant, which first makes the filing before it is routed over to the system, which is the second row. So let's go down system, and once the system has processed, it will route over to the officers to do your processing, which is what most of you here are familiar with. We have our vetting officer and approving officer for the next layer of processing of applications. Right, so this streamline diagram, once again, also improves the readability and interpretation of your workflow so that it is really easier to understand and more segregated, and it's not just a whole bunch of workflow crafted together. And on top of this, we also promote a more collaborative design because it won't just be the application team that is creating this. The business users, the product owners can also collaboratively contribute to the design of your workflow, because essentially this is a business workflow that is crafted for your needs. Okay, so let's go into the actual workflow itself. The start node here, this small circle, it denotes the actual start of the workflow, and it begins with the user task of the application being filed and submitted by the public applicant. And once that is done, it will then be routed over to the decision task, which ties in with what I've explained earlier. If you click into it, notice on the right panel here, these are all the configurations pertaining to your task, and of course they differ depending on what task it is. So you can see on the decision ID here, it actually ties in with the same exact decision table that I've shown you. So you can really just interlink it. If you have a couple of decision tables and you need to link to a couple of them in your workflow, you can just create separate tasks and link to them respectively. Yep. And of course, the output would then be the outcome of the evaluation by the decision rules. So once we have the outcome, whether or not it is to proceed for usual cases, the auto refusal for trademarks that maybe they are very similar to existing trademark or well-known mark, they will flow on to the other parts, the next parts of the workflow accordingly. But for our particular case, it will be the schedule meeting flow for the subjective cases of applications. And the first task that we see is this JavaScript task, construct event booking message. So JavaScript task is for you to design your business logic and craft out in JavaScript code your logic that you require in your workflow. But of course, in this case, it is helping us to craft out the prompt to be sent to our AI agent later on. And of course, the prompt will then be sent to the AI agent, which is this book event with AI agent task. So this is your AI agent task. And similarly, again, if you look at the configurations, we are also linking this to the AI agent flow that we have shared earlier. So it's this AI agent endpoint name book calendar, which is the meeting scheduler agent that Wishong shared. So the result from this, of course, it will be the calendar link that has all been done up by the AI agent through its stop process and the actual booking of the link. And once we have the link, we will then proceed to pass it and update it and send it over to the database to store through this JDBC task here. So similarly here, you can use whatever select statements or update statement in our case to suit your needs. And in this case, it really depends on what you want to do in a database query. All right, so the database will store this link, and subsequently, let's say the meeting has been scheduled, the attendees, the experts have attended the meeting. What happens next will be your usual government process flow, which is where your officers will come in and do the processing. So over here for the vetting officer, it will go to this user task to perform the processing of your application further. And if you look at the configuration for user tasks. Earlier I mentioned about task routing. How it's done is actually through this configuration here. So it's really, really straightforward. You can see for the route type, you can select the particular routing algorithm that you want to choose for your task. And in this case, we have selected round robin. But depending on your needs, you can also use various algorithms to suit your use case. And once you have crafted and selected the particular algo, you can just use the group type here to configure who exactly you want to route your task to. So you can see we have either user group or role for you to easily define in your application. And once the task is executed, what happens is that it will route over via this algorithm and all the way to this group that you have configured here. So yeah, essentially that is the vetting task of how an officer will process. And once that is done, similarly, it will route to the next stage of approval, which is essentially the same flow, just that it's the second layer of processing. Okay, so now you all know what the workflow is capable of in designing all your business processes and crafting out your business needs and use case. But what if there are errors that arise in your system after you deploy them? I'm sure you can relate to me on this, right? Like sometimes your system suddenly just goes haywire. There's a bug that occurs somewhere, but you're really just knee deep into your logs trying to figure out what exactly went wrong, right? So in that case, you really don't have to worry, because if you use Kaizen, what we have is that we have inbuilt observability for you. We have tools for you to monitor the progress and the status of your application's running instances right out of the box for you. So over here, we are at the workflow instance page, which shows a list of all the tasks. So all these tasks, they could be running at different instances and different statuses. So you can see it's represented by the status column over here. So now let's step through an actual running instance, which is the demo that Wei Xiong has shared earlier. So this is the same flow. So if you click into the workflow instance, immediately what you see is this visual view of all this with the same trademark workflow. So we have all these color-coded tasks to represent the statuses of each and every task. So we have the green task, which actually shows you the entire flow of the trademark, the entire flow of this particular workflow, which route it has taken and which path it has taken. And the green color code represents that the task has executed successfully, similar to the purple code, but just that the purple code means that it is executed more than once, which is for this AI agent task. So if you scroll down, you also notice that we have the yellow color code, which means that this is pending action, and this is the task that we are currently at. So you can tell now the task is pending the vetting officer to process it further. And we also have another color code in red to highlight erroneous tasks, which I'll show you more later on in a next workflow. So on top of this visual color code across the board in the workflow, we also have more in-depth observability. So if we click into the task, let's click on the AI agent task. You can see on the left panel here, we have the tab to show you the variables before as well as the variables after. So you can really see whether or not you are inputting the right variables, the right results, whether the results are returned as you expect. So you can do your verification here. And as you can see, we have also color codes here to represent newly added variables as shown in green. So these are the results that the AI agent has generated out for us, including the meeting calendar link that you have seen. Then, of course, if the variables have changed, it will be shown in a separate color code in orange. And if the variables have been removed, it will be shown in red. Yeah. So other than that, we also have this timeline tab here below, as you can see. And if you click into it, notice that you can see different color codes as well, which you have just seen of all the various tasks. And in this case, if you hover over a particular task, you can see how long it took to run, when it started, and also when it ended. So for the AI task, notice how it took longer to run. And this is expected of AI. And yeah, I think most of you are looking at how there are two separate color codes for the AI task. So the red color code, actually we have auto retry mechanism. So because AI is non-deterministic, right? So the result returned by the AI agent will be different each time. So we actually have the handling here to verify and to bypass these sort of issues and handle them right from the workflow itself. So you can see how the AI actually managed to identify the error and rerun and give us the meeting calendar link that you have seen earlier successfully. And then, of course, user tasks will take longer for action. That's why sometimes in your workflow, you notice that user tasks take a longer time. Right, so all of these tools are here to assist you in your applications running instances. Now let's finally go to the other workflow to show the erroneous task. So this is another pre-prepared instance to show you the red error task. So in this particular scenario, this HTTP task, why it's in red is because the API service that is calling was down earlier. But now, because we have the service up and running, I'll show you how you can actually rerun and progress your instances to the next step when you encounter errors as such. So in this particular case, let's click on the edit task feature and we can proceed to click on the retry button here. So as mentioned, because our service is finally running successfully, no issues already, we'll proceed to retry this particular task. Alright, so now you notice that the task has moved on to the next step of the workflow. It has run successfully as seen by the color code. So we have highlighted various ways. Whether or not you have errors that you encounter in your workflow, you can easily just progress them once you have troubleshooted, and this will help to reduce the bottleneck in your systems and increase its stability. And as mentioned earlier, I've highlighted a few ways. We really provide you observability down to the in-depth portion of your running instances. So you can really troubleshoot from there, and once you find out the problems, you can identify them and rectify them really quickly. Alright, so I think it's almost lunchtime now, and I think some of you here might be thinking about food already. I'll keep this short and sweet and sum up my presentation on the slides. Okay, so Wishon has highlighted the AI agent builder, and I've talked and shared more about our workflow features. So firstly, what we help you to achieve is that you can easily harness the power of Gen AI through configurations. So we have capabilities of integrating your Gen AI models into your application and even incorporating RAG into your application as well. But for today, of course, the main highlight, it will be how you can incorporate generative AI, in particular to AI agents, into your application's workflow. Which brings me to my second point on how you can construct and automate your business processes by integrating with microservices, AI models, even user tasks as well through the workflow that you have seen. And last but not least, the observability portion is how you can observe your business processes in action. Because the important part is not just about deploying and delivering your application, but it's really on to the next stage when you operate them and maintain them, whether or not you can troubleshoot and pinpoint your errors and identify bottlenecks in your system. So through this, really you can help to improve your applications, your system's efficiency, your operational efficiency by highlighting how you can easily just render and identify errors and solve them, most importantly. Right, this is my last slide. So we have went through a couple of our features centered around AI today. So Kaizen, of course, we have a whole suite of other features that you can see here in this slide. Actually, the first row here are our designer features, which will aid in your design of your applications, really from the front-end UI screens all the way to configurations of the back-end, your API, your database, etc. And once you have designed your application, as I mentioned, the important part is the actual runtime of it. So the second and third row are more centered around the runtime stack, how we can automate process automation of your deployed workflow instances, and how we have observability tools to aid in the operations of your day-to-day jobs. And of course, today's key highlight will be how we have Gen AI integration offered in Kaizen, as well as the AI agent builder. So feel free to reach out to any of us if you have use cases or questions and any use case that might be of interest. Yeah, thank you.